All signs point to Trevor Lawrence making his way back onto the field this week, and Vinnie and I think he's a sneaky good start. We dig into the best sleepers and DFS plays of the week on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. We're here for you every day of the week, helping you win your fantasy football leagues. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL fantasy and betting for sportingnews.com. Hope you all had a very happy Thanksgiving. And just as important, hope your fantasy football plays came through for you as well yesterday.
Yeah, if you had Rico Dowdle, you're happy. If you had Caleb Williams or Keenan Allen or DJ Moore, you were happy. We'll get into that in a moment. I just want to remind everyone that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. So the games yesterday, I mean, overall, they're kind of meh, right?
Yeah.
First game, though, the Bears-Lions got interesting. The Bears bared themselves at the end. And now Eberflus is officially gone. So that's good news, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, Caleb Williams got hot in the second half. And DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, I mean, we're great again. Allen catches 2 more receiving touchdowns. Wild. But maybe the Bears are playable.
Yeah, I think you look at the Bears offense, I think they're kind of doing what we might have expected earlier in the season, and it took a change in coordinator Thomas Brown. I think he's done a pretty good job when you look at the production of Caleb Williams the past 2 weeks. 2 pretty hot defenses, the Vikings and the Lions. For Caleb Williams to put up those numbers in those games, it's pretty impressive, and he's also looked more comfortable. He's running around. I know he's still taking those sacks, and that's been part of his thing all season long because he's extending plays and this Bears offensive line is not very good, but he's really thrown some sharp passes downfield. That Keenan Allen touchdown was brilliant early in the game to get them back. Well, early in the second half, I should say, but early to got their rally started to kind of keep them in the game. And then DJ Moore, also a nice, good touchdown connection there. So I look at this Bears team and okay, maybe they're a little bit free. I think maybe the coaching was a problem, not just Shane Waldron and Matt Eberflus. Just so when you look at that, I look at the Bears maybe finishing strong here. I mean, Williams just looks a lot more comfortable the last couple of weeks. He's kind of improvising the way that he should, and Brown is letting him do that. Like he realizes that's part of his game, and there are going to be some sacks. You just have to take those sacks. There's going to be some turnovers. You just have to take those. He's a rookie. Just let him play his game, and you'll see the results. I mean, Moore and Allen came through. Cole Kmet is always going to be a wild card. Rhamondre as well, but they got Allen to complement Moore. This is the kind of offense we wanted to see, and we finally saw it really the past couple weeks with Moore and Allen working together with Williams.
Yeah, we'll see if they can also do it next week against the 49ers, but it'll be interesting with a new head coach there. We're going to get into our sleepers of the week. We give you one at each position, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, and then get into our daily fantasy football talk where we give you our favorite prize picks of the week and our FanDuel lineup. So let's start at the top here with our favorite quarterback sleeper of the week. And we're going with Trevor Lawrence. We know he's coming back from that shoulder injury, but from what it sounds like, Doug Peterson came out today and said he had a great week of practice. It seems like he's going to play, and he gets a really nice matchup against the Texans, who have been allowing fantasy points to these quarterbacks, allowing a lot of passing touchdowns to teams. And, Jalen Petrie is also dealing with an injury on the Houston side of the ball. I think Trevor Lawrence could have a really solid, not like huge game, but a solid fantasy day this week.
Yeah, in the previous matchup, he had 2 touchdowns, but it was under 200 yards passing. I think he's going to have to go over that in this rematch because I think the Texans offense kind of had a little bit of a get-well situation. I know they did lose the Titans, but C.J. Stroud should have his way, as well as Joe Mixon with this Jaguars defense on the road. So that should mean high volume for Trevor Lawrence. We're not sure what he's going to get out of Travis Etienne or Tank Bigsby in the running game. Not much, maybe. Brian Thomas Jr. has a great matchup in this one. So do any of the receivers they want to put out there. Evan Ingram at tight end can have a day here. So, look, Lawrence is going to have volume. The matchup is good. He's going to move around. I think you'll see some good positive adjustments from this offense as we kind of finish down the stretch. Doug Peterson knows that it's coach firing season. So I think you'll see the Jaguars come out and play as best as they can here and make it interesting. And again, the Texans prove they're pretty vulnerable, right? They've been getting away with some close games, but when that happens, you're going to be susceptible to losing to bad teams like the Titans. So the Jaguars are in that category. They should be a little bit inspired what they saw Tennessee do.
Yeah, I like really all the passing options in this game. I like C.J. Stroud and Nico Collins and Tank Dell, and then Trevor Lawrence and Brian Thomas is one of my favorites this week as well. And then Evan Ingram. Like they should all be good plays this week. Moving on to our running back. It's always hard to find the sleeper running back, right? I wanted Rico Dowdle. That was my sleeper of the week in my Fire and Ice column I do for PFF, but he played on Thursday, so couldn't do him. He had a great game, by the way. Rico Dowdle looks like he's really starting to flash, and he's really the only part of this Cowboys offense that looks good anymore. But he already played, so we had to go with someone else. We're going with Gus Edwards against the Falcons. J.K. Dobbins is going to miss time. He's going to get all the workload. We know the Chargers are like, yeah, the Falcons are better at stopping the run than the pass, but the Chargers are still going to run the ball. Like they're meant to be a running team. They want to run. They want to play defense. And really, it comes down to can he score a touchdown? He did last week, but like that's where you're going to get your fantasy points from him.
Yeah, and all you're looking for probably is 60 yards rushing and a touchdown. I think you can definitely get that from Edwards this week. The Falcons have been okay against the run. They're kind of middle of the pack when you examine overall the metrics, but the Chargers do what they do, and you still can control the line of scrimmage a little bit on Atlanta. So you also look at this game potentially being high scoring. That's also going to give Edwards some opportunities to score right inside the 10, playing off the passing game. So that's always good. We know he scored 13 touchdowns last year for the Ravens. So he's a good goal line guy, and I don't think they need to pull him out, like put in Hassan Haskins or something like that. I don't think you're going to see that very often unless Edwards pulls off like a 20-plus yard run, and then they have to rest him near the goal line. But I think he's pretty much going to be their finisher for a while with Dobbins out, which is great because we know this offense is going to move the ball and have a lot of success in this particular matchup. It might be a little bit more yardage and the big plays through the air, but they need to close these drives on the ground.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Now, wide receiver. Listen, we could have went with Marquez Valdes-Scantling, right? But we've already talked about him. We like him against the Rams a lot. So we're going to go with someone else. Devon Bailey against the Browns, the 7th-round rookie. Like, he's getting a lot of playing time over the last few weeks. Like, we've seen that go up. Had a career-high 9 targets for 80 yards last weekend. He's just getting involved, and now he gets a really nice matchup against the Browns, who have allowed the 9th most fantasy points per game to wide receivers. And also in the slot, the Browns have allowed 8.9 yards per target to slot receivers this year. That's second most in the league behind only the Buccaneers. So Bailey is a slot wide receiver. He has a nice matchup, and Greg Newsome is also banged up as well. So we could see him have a really solid game. Not going to be like 100-plus yard game probably, but another 80-yard game is in the cards.
Yeah, and he's getting very consistently involved. I mean, we think it's a bit random, but then you start looking at it, it's a lot of Courtland Sutton on the outside as the number 1. The other guy kind of is all over the place, like we've seen Troy Franklin and Marvin Mims and Little Jordan Humphrey and all these other guys. But Bailey is getting the consistent snaps there when they go with their 11 personnel with Sutton in the slot. You mentioned Greg Newsome. He struggled anyway. This whole secondary has struggled for the Browns. One of the biggest issues on this team, kind of taking away what they can do in the pass rush with Myles Garrett. So Bailey is one of the better matchups of the week. I think there's a good chance he can get a second touchdown of his rookie season. So we'll see how that plays out. But I do like Bailey quite a bit this week. And I'm just surprised he's still not in a lot of rosters. I'm probably going to play him this week. I have questions about Darnell Mooney and his matchup against the Chargers. And it's a tough call. I never thought I would say that here in week 13, but Mooney versus Bailey is a tough call. But if I'm looking strictly on the matchup, Bailey has the better matchup this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes you got to make those tough decisions. Even though the name's bigger for Mooney, I would also slightly lean Bailey there, and you're taking that risk. But now at tight end, we're going with your dude and my dude, because I'm a Steelers fan. We're going with Pat Freiermuth against the Bengals. Matchup is amazing. That's really why we're going with it, right? Like, it's not like Pat Freiermuth ever does anything huge. At least this season he hasn't, but he's been doing something, right? It's not like huge fantasy points, but he's getting you about 40 to 50 yards in any given week. And the Bengals, in each of the last 7 games, they've allowed 6 tight ends to score 15 fantasy points against them, including Mark Andrews, Will Dissly, and Brock Bowers, who've all done it over the Bengals' last 3 games. So they're really, really bad against the tight end. Last time Pat Freiermuth played against the Bengals last year was 9 receptions, 120 yards. So he's done it against them, and the Bengals just stink at covering the tight end.
Yeah, they do. And this game could be a little higher scoring than we anticipate with Muth having a big role here. I mean, the Bengals should come out after their bye. They're desperate. They're going to probably play pretty good offense here. So Russell Wilson's going to have to put the ball up in the air a little bit. The Bengals' run defense significantly improved. They're having all those issues from week 1, but they really cleaned it up in the front. So I don't know if there's going to be a lot of room for Najee Harris and Jalen Warren. So maybe a lot more throwing here from Russell Wilson in this game to keep up with Joe Burrow on the road this week. So, and Freiermuth is the guy that they tend to leave open here with their coverage style for Cincinnati. So I'm really excited what he can do. It'd be nice if he can get a touchdown. They do have that flip play that they can run to him in the red zone. The touchdown would be great for Freiermuth, and then it takes a little bit of pressure off the kind of yardage day he has. But he's a good player. Sometimes they need to involve him a little bit more behind the wide receivers, and this is a good time to do it.
They need him this week. If they're going to keep up with Cincinnati's offense, they're going to need him. We're going to transition now to our daily fantasy talk. If you don't play daily fantasy, that's okay. These are still guys we like for this week. So just stick around, or maybe you'll start to play this week if your fantasy team has been stinking and you need some positivity in your life. We'll get into that right after a quick break. This episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you by the Game Time app. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. There's multiple reasons why I always use this app when buying tickets, but what I love about this app is that you get a panorama view of your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. It's so quick to buy the tickets. There's no you don't have to hit a bunch of buttons, right? You just go in, you look at the seats, you're like, okay, cool, I like this view. It's 2 taps and you're set. I love that. And then they have the best ticket coverage in the business in case anything goes wrong. They have event cancellation protection, 24-hour return guarantees, job loss assurance. You get to take the worries and the guessing work out of buying tickets when you use the Game Time app. So just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Favorite time of the week, PrizePicks picks of the week. If you don't play PrizePicks, go download it. It's the PrizePicks app. You can join us. You're just picking more or less on player projections. It's kind of like, fantasy, but a different little game here. But we give you our 3 favorite PrizePicks picks of the week. We always go more because we're a fantasy show. So, Vinnie, what is your favorite pick of the week?
Yeah, I was looking at a rushing number for a quarterback, as I usually do, but then something stood out to me when I was doing that, and it was Justin Herbert's combined number against the Falcons this week. I just need 270.5 combined passing and rushing yards against the Falcons. The Falcons are not good in the secondary. They do also allow rushing yards to the quarterback. I expect the Chargers to put it up more, but it's also such a low number, right? So I can get it either way. The Falcons, I think, average giving up close to 240 passing yards per game. So that's right in line with that. They give up about 35 rushing yards. So it's a little bit higher than that when we look at it. When you look at the combination, where we're not sure if Justin Herbert can do that. But then you look at his last 3 games. He's been very involved as a runner. He's getting over a good mark every week. He's just red hot, and this matchup says he's not going to cool down. I mean, the Falcons are just not a very good pass defense. They've been thin in the secondary. So I'm looking forward to some points here. Justin Herbert, I also like anything combined with Justin Herbert and Kirk Cousins this week as a secondary thing to look at. But 270.5 pass and rush yards combined, lock it in for Justin Herbert.
Yeah, I love that. I'm currently trying to decide to play either Justin Herbert or Kyler Murray in one of my leagues, and I am stressing about it. I keep going back and forth, but if you have any advice, let me know. Now, my favorite PrizePicks pick of the week is Will Levis plus Jayden Daniels. So you could do these combo ones. They play in the same game, but more than 424.5 passing yards combined. I mean, Will Levis has been on fire in passing yards lately, 295 and 278 over the last 2 weeks. So that would leave Jayden Daniels to have to put up very few passing yards. Jayden Daniels last week had 275, but last week combined, they put up 53 passing yards last week combined. They only need 425. The week before that, they put up 486 combined. The Commanders might not have any of their running backs, right? Eckler and Brian Robinson could be out. And the Titans have a really, really good run defense. They're going to have to pass. So I think this number is just way too low. 425 passing yards combined out of Will Levis and Jayden Daniels.
Yeah, I'd say Chargers-Falcons is the obvious sneaky passing game of the week. I would say Commanders-Titans is not so obvious sneaky passing game of the week. So I do like tapping into that game for the passing yards. Good pick by you. I also have a good combo here. I'm looking at two run defenses that stink that are playing each other this week. It's the Patriots and Colts, and this is good for both teams because I don't feel either team can blow out the other. So that means they're going to stick with the running game, not get into a situation with a horribly negative game script. That's what happened with the Colts last week at home against the Lions. The Dolphins smoked the Patriots, so there wasn't enough to stick with Rhamondre Stevenson. These two guys, it's strange. If the game script is somewhat even, they're involved quite a bit. But if their teams trail, they're so quick to pivot off using them. It's kind of dumb. I mean, these guys are two of the most talented players. Both of them, by the way, got new contracts of late. So they do value these players. Now use them in certain situations, but maybe it's the time where, okay, this is essentially a toss-up pick-em game, right? For me, I mean, Colts are slightly favored, but I didn't care about that. The bottom line is I want both running backs to stay active. And the number is 129.5. I could easily see one of these backs hitting 129.5 if they get enough work, and that's what I expect. Colts are not going to pull ahead. The Patriots are not going to pull ahead. They're going to stick to what they do well, is run the ball, try to take pressure off their athletic quarterbacks, Drake May and Anthony Richardson. So 129.5. Let's go. Stevenson and Taylor need a rebound. This is also for seasonal. Come on. Come through for your seasonal managers as well this week.
Yeah, they really need to do something. And if this game can stay close, like you're saying, then they should. Hopefully just one team doesn't get lucky with some big plays or whatever right to start the game, or special teams or something where one of them are behind to ruin that. Now mine, it's Bucky Irving. My next one, Bucky Irving to score a touchdown. It's more than a half of a rushing plus receiving touchdown. It's a demon pick, which means you make extra money if you hit it. He scored a touchdown in each of the last 2 games. He has scored a touchdown in 4 of his last 6 games. He's on the field a ton more lately. He's getting a lot of carries. He gets all the red zone work. He gets the majority of the goal line work. I know they went to Sean Tucker a couple times last game, but again, he fumbled. I just don't think he's going to get the work. But they're playing the Panthers, who have allowed 17 rushing touchdowns this season, 14 of them going to running backs, the most in the NFL through week 12. Bucky Irving's getting into the end zone this week, and it's a demon pick. So I love this one.
Yeah, we talked about how much we love Bucky Irving in general this week. So he's a must play in this Panthers matchup. And there's all different ways you can look at him at PrizePicks as well. If you're looking at yards or anything else with Irving, it's also a worthy thing to look into for your picks, and maybe a combo of things that you can do there with Bucky Irving. So definitely a great recommendation by you, Michelle. Now, my last one, we talked about Pat Freiermuth, and we're excited about Pat Freiermuth. So I had to include him in the PrizePicks. I was looking at the yardage here. I said, let's not do yardage. Let's just do the catches. Let's just do it on the easy side here. 2.5 receptions more. I think he can catch 3 balls against the Bengals. That's all I'm looking for. And if you want to go the yardage, it's not that high, but it's a little higher where he's going to have to average a good chunk per catch. But I don't need to do that. I want some dump offs. Say he just scores 2 3-yard touchdowns. I'll be fine with that. And that's what we get. But that's all we need. We need 3 receptions from Pat Freiermuth. I think he easily gets that. He's going to get enough targets to haul that down. So even if he gets 5 to 6 targets, I think he definitely is going to catch 3 balls this week.
Yeah, I mean, he had 4 in the snowstorm last week. He should have it. And the last 3 games against the Bengals, 9 receptions, 8 receptions, 5 receptions. I will say he did have 75 or more receiving yards in all 3 of those games too. 3 of his top 5 receiving games since 2023 since 2022 have come against the Bengals.
Yeah.
So he does eat them up. My last one, Courtland Sutton, more than 65.5 receiving yards. Again, I just feel like these are so easy that maybe I'm being too confident. But Sutton, over the last 5 weeks, he's averaging 10 targets per game, over 93 receiving yards per game. No player had more receiving yards than Sutton from weeks 8 through 12. Cleveland's allowing a lot of big plays in the passing game. The Browns have allowed a wide receiver to put up at least 78 receiving yards against them in each of their last 7 games. And all Courtland Sutton needs is 65.5 receiving yards.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, yeah, anything attached to the Broncos passing game right now, you cannot go wrong with Bo Nix and the way he's dealing, especially at home. It's going to be a Monday night. He's going to be pumped. They'll have another primetime game coming up Thursday pretty soon here. So Broncos maybe our primetime offense, and we want to see them do a little bit more. And that's why we gave them a little extra love. We've been talking a lot about Bo Nix. Now we gave Bailey a sleeper designation. We like Courtland Sutton here. So that says play your Broncos as much as possible, except those running backs, right? Those running backs are ambiguous. But if they're involved in the Broncos passing game and seeing looks from Bo Nix, play them, such as Sutton and Bailey. So good picks all around there. We will reveal our FanDuel lineups. We do not talk about our FanDuel lineups before we show them and tell you all about them as we share them with each other here. We'll have that to close the show, looking at the main slate and the tips that you can have there building your roster. All right, this episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. It's America's #1 sportsbook for a reason. If you got in on the action on Thursday, good for you. But if you haven't, it's a loaded slate. There are no teams on bye this week. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. You also have some action that you can look at for Monday, as we talked about the Browns and Broncos. If you feel great about the Broncos, you can go there as well. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more at FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Michelle, it is time to close the show, revealing our FanDuel lineups. This is for the main slate, so that takes care of all the Sunday games through Sunday night. Michelle, who's your quarterback this week you're playing in Week 13?
I'm going with C.J. Stroud. I know we talked a lot about Trevor Lawrence earlier. I also love C.J. Stroud in the same matchup. I get it. Stroud has not been an exciting player this year. He's not done what we expected him to do, but his best game of the season so far, by far, was against the Jaguars earlier. The Jaguars defense stinks. He has Nico Collins back. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game, and C.J. Stroud's going to get it done. And yes, I do have Nico Collins there in my wide receiver spot to stack with C.J. Stroud.
All right. Well, we did say again that we don't share these lineups at all, but I do have the stack as well.
That's crazy.
CJ Stroud at 8,000. I have Nico Collins expensive, so you're going to have to find some cheaper values elsewhere. But Stroud wasn't too crazy, right? 8,000, not at the higher end of quarterback, so that's a very comfortable pickup there. But I paid up for Collins. I wanted somebody to stack with him, and I'm like, I'm not going to mess with Dalton Schultz or anybody else. Let's just go Nico Collins and go there, and then I'll worry about the other spots in my lineup later.
Yeah, I did consider Tank Dell, but if one guy is going to go off for 150 yards and multiple touchdowns in this game, it would be Nico Collins. So that's why I went with him. I will say, let's just keep going with our wide receivers here because I went with the wide receiver also in that game, Brian Thomas Jr. We expect Trevor Lawrence to have a good game. Well, his only wide receiver left is Brian Thomas Jr. And Brian Thomas Jr. can have those big plays, especially against this Texans defense that's allowing those big plays and those touchdowns. So I went with Brian Thomas Jr. I went with Ladd McConkey as well because with the Chargers, he's been getting a lot of targets. The Falcons secondary is not good. Much easier to throw than pass on them. And then Marquez Valdes-Scantling for my last wide receiver here. Well, I guess that also includes my flex because Nico's in my flex. MVS, love the matchup for the Rams that he's getting used on these deep throws.
Yeah, I have Lad McConkey and Brian Thomas Jr. as
Oh
well.
my goodness. There's so many options out there.
Yeah, I had to go with McConkey. The way the Falcons slot to coverages, I had to go for him 6,300. He was valuable. And this is probably going to be a very similar construction. If you pay up for somebody, you're going to have to save some money at wide receiver. I have Brian Thomas Jr., but he's in my slot here at 67, or flex, I should say. McConkey's in the slot. Thomas is in the flex, however you want to look at it. And because I was on a rookie run of wide receiver, I added one more rookie wide receiver. I'm feeling Marvin Harrison Jr. this week.
Okay.
Look, I mean, his numbers are so up and down, inconsistent. We don't know when he's going to go off, but I look at that Bears passing game. It kind of had a lot of success against the Vikings last week. So, again, the Vikings cover corners are not very good. They're going to try to blitz Kyler Murray. Murray's going to probably find some single coverage downfield with Harrison. So I'm going with the rookie trio here, McConkey, Harrison, and Thomas to help Nico Collins.
All right. I hope Marvin Harrison Jr. has a good game. I really, really do. My running backs, I'm going with Tony Pollard in that Titans game against the Commanders. I do think Will Levis will have a good game, but we saw last week Will Levis had a solid game and Tony Pollard still had a great game. The Commanders can be run on. And then Bucky Irving, we've been talking about him. I expect him. He's my running back 12 on the week, and he's not close to that price at 7,200. So I went with Bucky Irving in an amazing matchup against the Panthers.
Yeah, I mentioned my two running backs before. They're the same game. So I'm just hoping this is just a handoff game there. Hope the weather stinks in New England and it has to be running all the time. I have Jonathan Taylor and Rhamondre Stevenson. I like both of them in this game quite a bit. Rebound. I also hope that it's somewhat contrarian because everyone's just like, I don't want to play these guys. And that's the other thing. That's what I also like about it. I'm sure there's somebody who looks at that, it's contrarian, so therefore it becomes mainstream, and therefore it's not contrarian anymore. But then I look at this and say, Taylor and Stevenson, the matchups are just too good. I mean, the Colts are absolute putrid against the run. The Patriots are not that much better. They did have a nice game last week against Devon Achane, but it was more that the Dolphins were just throwing and just didn't care. So I look at Taylor Stevenson. They need to get both these guys going in the same game.
Hope you're right. Now, tight end, K. Dotton. He's going to get going. So I have Bucky Irving. I'm also going to throw in K. Dotton. I mean, the Buccaneers should have no trouble putting up 30 points against the Panthers, right? So multiple guys can get in their fantasy points here. The Panthers are not only the worst at covering the running back or stopping the running back, they're also the worst against tight ends when it comes to giving up fantasy points. So going with K. Dotton to get his high targets, to get a touchdown, to get a lot of yards in this matchup.
Yeah, I do not have K. Dotton, but I have a guy that we love this week. It's Pat Freiermuth. I think he's going to have a very good game. So Michelle mentioned that history where he's had the big games, over 100 yards against the Bengals. So I'm hoping for that at 5,100 for my return on investment. I'm thinking, can I get 15.5 points? There's an outside shot with Pat Freiermuth if he finds the end zone this week.
And then I had to go real cheap with my defense because I did not have much money left. So I'm going with the Saints defense. Okay. I'm hoping that they are actually improved. We know Matthew Stafford can throw those interceptions. I could get a pick six in there. It's a home game for the Saints as well. So it's not necessarily the team I wanted to go with, but there is upside. So I was willing to take a chance with the Saints against Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, I did talk and think about the Saints because they were my price point, but I just went with the Patriots, so I get some kind of stack. I do actually like the Patriots to beat the Colts at home this week. It's just a tough little road game for the Colts. I think they could cause Anthony Richardson some problems overall in turning over the ball. So I just went with them. They did have 9 sacks a couple weeks ago, partly because they were playing Caleb Williams. But yeah, you look at the Colts and the way they are right now, I think they can be had for some mistakes, especially if Josh Downs is ruled out, which is the case here. So when you look at it, I do like the Patriots here, and they were just the right price point at 3,600.
All right. I thought about the Patriots, but I went with the Saints. We'll see who was the right choice there. But that's it for our Week 13 prep. We have a game coming up here shortly against the Chiefs and the Raiders. It'd be really cool if the Raiders could, give us something to watch of entertainment. We shall see, but we hope you have a great weekend. We'll be back on Monday. If you could hit that subscribe button for us on YouTube, give us a like on whatever podcast app you're listening to, that'd be greatly appreciated. We'll talk to you on Monday. Bye, y'all.